we are now recording the meeting, and instead of going through the roll call again, I will just say at this point that we had 11 board members present, so we have a quorum.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Mr. Vice President, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I am, I guess I'm speaking as a board member because that's reflects, I mean, it's pertinent to my experience on the board and that sort of thing. I have been on the board since I think August of 2016 or so, and there has been a general pattern of behavior from some board members directed at others that, you know, at one time or another has bothered me more or less, but in general has bothered me somewhat. And without naming names or making specific accusations, which is not the point of my statement, I'd like to say that on many occasions, I have seen conduct towards male board members, towards female board members that has seemed particular and exceptional in terms of the general approach that we have towards one another. And with a couple of board members in particular as the targets of this behavior and treatment, it has emerged to me anyway, in my perception, as a pattern. And it's something that I am uncomfortable with. I feel it's disrespectful and unprofessional and destructive and erosive to the work that not only these particular board members have done, but of the function and the I think the integrity of the board as a whole. Again, I'm not here to make specific accusations. Some of the people involved are no longer associated with the board, and it's not my place necessarily to speak for anyone else, other than in things that I've observed that I find generally unacceptable. I going forward will not be silent on it if they happen in real time, but I would request that people who may have perceived other things, if they have themselves have felt that they weren't given the appropriate amount of respect or whatever, that we not suck it up, that we not accept this as cost of doing business, because I know with reasonable amount of certainty that it has caused board members to reconsider and in some cases, you know, sort of abandon their participation because they felt that some of the treatment they were getting, despite the work that they were doing, did not work itself out to an equitable exchange of time and energy. So I do not wish to see high functioning, productive, participating board members be discouraged or, you know, dismissed because others feel that they can get away with it or somehow unconscious of their attitude. And again, not all of these things, these aren't necessarily mine to manage, but I'm seeing these things happen. I have seen it happen in the past, and I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want people to feel like they have two jobs to do when they come here. Going forward, I intend to call it out, and hopefully other people will be more sensitive to it as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice President. I appreciate your comments. As council members, it's all our duty to protect one another and remember that this is a good forum for healthy discussion and meaningful discussion, but we should always make sure that the discussion is what is counting, and character, or some people say that it's personalities, should be not the issue, and we're in it for the discussion. So it's also my job as president to help us protect one another, so I will continue to do that, and I think that I've endeavored to do that. And so we'll move on to the next comment on general comment. However, I would like to say I'm not sure if there are any more students present. In the past couple of meetings, we had some students come in the high school ages, and if there are any, you can raise your hand maybe toward the end of the public comment period, and then let the secretary or whoever else, if you need them to record you being here, then they can do that. But if not, we'll move forward. So any other public comment on non-agenda items? I see Council Member Cynthia Gagne's hand up. Go ahead.
I was wondering if I was changed over.
I was just going to ask if that was the right Cynthia, so I'll promote you.
Hopefully there's only one of us. I wouldn't say two of us. Oops. Hopefully there's only one. Thanks.
Okay. I'll ask Mr. Vice President and Mr. Secretary to help recognize people who might be seeking to be recognized. So this is comments on non-agenda items.
Oh, I see Maya Denola's hand raised.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Trying to get this to turn on. It's not an agenda item. It could certainly fit somewhere else on the agenda, but I'm gonna just make a public statement about it. And I apologize for not being at the last board meeting. Had some conflicts. I just wanted to encourage the board as a whole to support some of our other board members in other parts of San Pedro in the call that has gone out based on the events at Point Furman a couple of weeks ago. And the absolutely appalling public comment that took place with Harbor Division Police Department. There are certain members of the community in San Pedro which are seeking to find out how we can address the fact that the captain for Harbor Division saw it appropriate to call members of the public liars and to deny factual evidence which was presented for the complete disregard for the law that his officers showed on Saturday at Point Furman when the noted terrorist group, the Proud Boys, arrived in town and held a rally. The police chief saw it appropriate to tell members of the public that were present and wanted to file reports of factual harassment and threats that they were lying. I, for one, am not going to tolerate this type of behavior from our police department. I hope that you will all join me in holding our Harbor Division Police Department accountable. The behaviors of the captain, what he said in the public meeting, harken back to a time that I certainly hope none of us ever see again, in which specifically people who are of non-white European descendancy in this country were not respected and marginalized in the way that he marginalized members of our community at that meeting. So I would like that noted publicly, and I would like to encourage every member who is here today to participate in the effort to hold Harbor Police Division accountable for keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Mr. President.
So let's hear, are there any more members of the public not on the council that would like to make general public comment? This is the time for our members of the public to make comments. So are there any more members of the public with hands raised? Okay, Mr. Vice President, are there any other hands?
I see none.
From our fellow.
I just wanted to add a point of clarification for Maya. There actually is an agenda item later that refers directly to this. We'll have a more expanded discussion.
Oh, wonderful. I must have missed that. My apologies.
It kind of happened in between the cycle, which is why we're trying to get it in tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it looks like we're clear. It looks like we have two San Pedro High students in attendance. They've commented in Q&A. And I am taking a quick look in attendees. I think we're good to go. It looks like we have a significant number of San Pedro High students.
I took screenshots, Chris. So
Thanks.
I'll-
Yeah, that would be helpful. We can,
Bunky.
whoever we need to talk to after the fact, we can
Yeah,
square all that away.
I've been sending them to Bunky every meeting, just
Okay.
taking shots. So
Thanks. Okay, Mr. President, I think we can proceed.
Okay, well, Mr. Secretary and Mr. Vice President, is the next item before us the consent calendar, or is it the elected officials reports?
We are looking at public official reports.
Okay, are there any government representatives, government officials that would like to speak before the council or the public and give us an update of 5 minutes each and perhaps a question or two if we have time? Anyone from the CD15 or our local state officials or county officials or the mayor's office or perhaps the Port of Los Angeles? Please raise your hand and you may speak.
I do see Octaviano Reyes from the Department of Labor and Empowerment, but I do not see others.
Okay, Mr. Rios, please give us your report.
All right, testing. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
We can hear you, Mr. Rios. It's good to hear from you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to be here, and our apologies for not being in attendance last month at another meeting, but hopefully you had a productive one. And I heard it was absolutely shorter, but a quality meeting. So congratulations on that. Again, my name is Octaviano. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my name is Octaviano with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. I have a few items to share with the board to keep you updated. The first one is some opportunities for training. The one that's coming up quickly, it has a deadline of November 30th, is a required training called the Anti-Bias Learning for Employees Training with acronyms ABLE, A-B-L-E. Again, it's a mandatory training for neighborhood council board members to help promote equity and inclusion within the neighborhood council system. If you have any difficulty accessing that training, please let us know as soon as possible. You should all have access to it through your cornerstone. And if you would like some background information as to how this required training came about, you can find it in one of your previous neighborhood council profiles, or shoot me an email and I can send you some of that background information as well as the executive order. An opportunity for additional training, but not required, is the Core Institute Module 3, scheduled for November 30th at 6:30. The topics there will include drafting agendas, drafting community impact statements and what they are, as well as going over the legislative process in relations to CISs, going over presenting public testimony, and going over social media tools and policies. So don't forget to register to Module 3 as soon as you can, so we can get a nice head count ahead of time. And Planning 101 training for those that are in your planning and land use committee, those members, either board and stakeholders, please don't forget you now have access to your Planning 101 training that's required as a member of that committee. You should have access either through Cornerstone for those board members, but for those that aren't board members, you should have access to that training through also Cornerstone, so you'll get that one access to that training so you can complete it as your service to that committee. And that will be due December 1st of this year. The draft proposed amendments for the 2060 Code of Conduct Policy still open for feedback. Commission's still reviewing it. But I encourage you as a board, if you haven't shared your feedback, and I believe you have, but even as individuals, board members or stakeholders, if you have some specific feedback, please do so as soon as possible. Looks like they're going to be wrapping up that pretty quickly. Bylaw amendments, not due April 15th. That was a mistake on our end. They're due April 1st of next year. So I know that that's a big topic for tonight. And if you can get those proposed amendments in before April 1st, it'll give staff a little bit more flexibility to work with you and provide some feedback if needed, especially for those board structure changes. So deadline again is April 1st for bylaw amendments. I'm not going to go over all the changes or impacts that AB 361.
I'm not sure if it froze or if Mr. Rios stopped speaking, but I also see Scott Gaines up. So after Mr. Rios is through, let's get a 5-minute report from Scott Gaines.
Christian, we can still hear Octaviano. I'm not, maybe you can't. Can you hear me?
Mr. Chair, can you hear us?
I don't think he can hear us.
Oh, should I move forward?
Hold on just a moment. Well, actually, go ahead. I'll text him.
Can you repeat the AB number, please?
AB 361.
Hello, testing again.
Can you hear us?
Is Scott Gaines available now after Mr. Rios?
I don't think he can hear us.
I don't think so. I'm texting him right now. Stand by.
Okay.
Can Octaviano go on with his report?
Yep, please do.
Okay. So AB 361, also titled Open Meetings, State and Local Agencies Teleconferences. I sent an email, a pretty comprehensive email, some of the impacts that this relatively new state legislation would have on neighborhood council meetings, public meetings. And so I won't go over all of them tonight, but if you do have questions, let me know. If you didn't get that email, shoot me an email, octaviano.rios@lacity.org. We do want to have all board members up to date as to the requirements that this legislation has upon public meetings, not just up and down California, but on neighborhood councils. And you should have also gotten it through our general manager about 2 months ago via an email. So it relates to updating your agendas with an agenda template that's available, time limits for items, public comments, meeting registration, how to handle meeting interruptions and disruptions, among other things that my email highlighted. And last but not least, I do want to thank the whole board in this Thanksgiving season. Thank you for your service on this board, to your city, to your community, and to the officers for stepping up in your leadership roles to provide that extra responsibility on your board to provide not only services to run your meetings, but also to provide leadership and an effective unity, which we all need during these times of COVID, where many of us feel so separated from each other, and all we have to hang on to is are these meetings that are live, which I super appreciate you all doing, how much work it does take. So thank you for putting in that time, and that hopefully everybody's doing well. And don't hesitate to reach out to me, to the departments, for any assistance and support that you may need, small or large. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and happy holidays. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Christian, are you? Well, actually, I don't even see him on the grid now. I know that Officer Gaines is on standby, so I believe.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Octaviano for the help, and I encourage everybody to take that anti-bias training. It's required, and you're going to have to take it, but I took it, and I got mine out of the way, and you can really see the differences. If you think you don't have biases, everybody has them, and you'll realize that when you take the class, whether you think you're biased or not. You're raised, the certain ways that you're raised and certain things that you've done in your life and all that, it presents a certain type of bias. So thank you, Octaviano, for the help of getting the class taken care of, because I couldn't get on Cornerstone, but thanks.
Thank you for your patience.
Very good. A little perspective goes a long way. All right, let's move on to Officer Scott Gaines. Let me ask you to unmute, and I believe you're good to go.
Okay, how are you all doing? Sergeant Gaines, Los Angeles Port Police. I was just calling to give you guys just a quick snapshot of what we have at the port. If LAPD is here, then some of our stats will be the same as their stats because we're incorporated into them. But crime has been down pretty much all year, except for one thing: vehicle crimes. Stolen cars are still very high. We had, we had 35 motor vehicle thefts last year, and we have 35 motor vehicle thefts this year. So chances are we're going to actually top it, unless we don't have any more for the month of, for the next 2 months. Those of you who showed up at the Iowa for the trunk or treat, thank you for showing up. That was the first time Port Police showed up with and decorated our cars. And we handed out over 450 bags of candy. So if your children were one of them, thank you for showing up. And I'm sure the dentists will be very happy as well. But we just like to hopefully come back next year and do the same thing all over again. We're gonna, with us, Harbor Division and Black Knight Security are gonna reach out and tell the neighborhood councils ahead of time. We weren't sure of how many people were going to show, but we're going to get more candy and hopefully we can get more people out there. We don't have anything coming up for November. Everything that was in the beginning of November, like the Dia de los Muertos 5K and things like that. But at the end of November, we're starting to do the holiday seasons where you'll have the parades and such, but that's about it. If there's anything that happens, you'll probably be hearing from me in the December meeting, if you have a December meeting because of the holidays. But that's all I have to offer unless you have anything to ask of me.
Anyone have questions? All right, looks like we're clear. Thank you very much for your report and for checking in. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
This is LAPD's report. Everybody should have it to look at. I put it up on the screen. Dan Brown is not available to come to the meeting tonight. So this was a report that he sent in. Everybody take a glance at it. Should I read it for the people that are on the phone?
Oh, please do. Yeah, I think it might be helpful.
Okay, homicide 0, robbery 3 last year, aggravated assault 10, 9 last year, rape 3, 0 last year, burglary 6, 12 last year, vehicle theft 16, 17 last year, burglary theft from vehicle 13, 12 last year, 13 theft, 13 last year, total part 1 crime 64, 66 last year. Unlike previous months statistic this October compared to last revealed, no significant outliners in the crime numbers, with the one exception being perhaps rapes. There were a total of 3 rapes reported last month compared to 0 last October. There are fewer 2 overall part 1 crimes reported, resulting in 3% drop. Please be advised that I will not be able to attend this month's Zoom. If anybody has any questions, please email him. That's what he says.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Yes, you're always welcome to email Scott Gaines and this officer Daniel Brown. And then, do you have a CPAB report, Melanie?
Yes, I do.
Okay, very good.
Right. So the CPAB report is kind of long. And so I am not going to, based on a lot of stuff to cover this meeting tonight, I really recommend people go read it. Again, these are notes from the meeting. They aren't my opinions. These are notes that come directly from the meeting that I take when I'm in the meeting. The one thing that I found that was interesting is this month is Domestic Violence Month. And so they had 2 people representing domestic violence that were there. They found that domestic violence crimes have gone up during COVID. And it's because more people are at home. There's a program that's called DART. And they kind of focus on mental health calls for LAPD partnership. And it's been in existence since 1998 in 21 divisions, but they are not 24/7 coverage and they are not 7 days a week due to funding. But I think we all need to advocate for that. Shelters are completely full right now. So there were times when they could call and get somebody into a shelter if they needed to right away. And now they have to call around and find placement. It's not automatic and they can't get them in. So it's very difficult to find space. There's male victims, LGBTQ victims, and females. It's not just females that are victims of domestic violence. There's also teens that are targeted too. And so for them, they have a special program that goes out to the high schools. And it helps them with like domestic violence within the home. And and then there was a lot of talk, and there will be a motion coming up later from public safety about the event that happened at Point Furman. The meeting really centralized around that for CPAB, and us that were in attendance at that meeting in the executive board, as well as representatives of CPAB, we just got big knots in our throats sitting there in that meeting, some of the language that was used and the answers that were given. And we really feel the public deserves better answers than what they got. And so we'll address that when it comes up on the agenda. But I really suggest everybody go back and read the CPAB report that's up on the agenda items. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Madam Treasurer. Mr. Secretary, what is the next order of business?
Since we have no presentations, the next item is the selection of the Averill seat, Averill area seat board member.
Okay, very good. Well, we have a vacancy that we can fill tonight, and I believe we have 2 candidates that are here before us. They were given the opportunity to think of a couple of questions before the meeting, and we also had the pleasure of having a description of one of the candidates in our packet, which I think is good. So is Diana Nave here? If Diana Nave, if you're here and you'd like to help to select the candidates, that would be good. Otherwise, I'll continue.
You're still muted, Diana.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll go ahead. So we actually received 2 applications for the seat, and both were qualified. The 2 candidates are Adrianita Reyes Cruz and Anelia Courtcamp. They both submitted statements. There should be 2 statements in the agenda packet. Tonight they'll be given a maximum of 2 minutes each to speak. And so we've asked them to use that time to introduce themselves and answer 3 questions, the same ones we did of the last candidates. What inspired you to seek a seat on the board? What previous community experience do you bring to the board? And what committee or committees are you interested in serving on and why? So in accordance with our bylaws, the selection will be made by a voice vote of the board members present, and the president will vote only to break a tie. So let's hear from the 2 candidates. I'll take them in the order that they were listed on the agenda. So the first candidate is Adrianita Reyes Cruz. So you have the floor.
Okay, let me turn on my camera. Okay, so my name is Adrianita Reyes Cruz, and I'm sorry, I had to ask. Do I just read the questions, or what do I do?
You can make whatever statement you want in the 2 minutes. We gave you those questions as a guideline of what we'd like to hear.
Oh, okay, sounds good. I just want to make sure. Thank you. So, like I said again, my name is Adrianita Reyes Cruz, and I go to Cal State Long Beach. I'm still a student, and I'm majoring in healthcare administration. And then the reason why I applied to the board is that, as some of you guys know, I was the youth rep, and I loved it, and it was a great opportunity. And but sadly, like I applied like when COVID hit, so there wasn't like, I guess it's not the same, how do I say, the same thing as being in person. So although I learned so much, I still want to learn more about it. So let's see. I'm so nervous. And then I also hope to bring diversity to the board, being a Latina. So I also I want to reach out to others, to the other youth, like the same as they identify as the same race or ethnicity that I do. And I also bring determination to the board, because when I was a youth rep, I went to Guatemala, and I was in the meeting for youth and outreach, and I was doing it through Zoom Guatemala. So I am very determined. It doesn't matter where I'm at. So, and then some experience that I bring is, although I don't have as much because of COVID. I went to San Pedro High School, and then some of the things I did in San Pedro High School, I was in leadership. I was in EXP. I had an internship with Puerto America, and I also volunteered at the Harbor Interfaith Services. So there were some things that I did in the community, and also being a youth rep. And then some, like a board that I'm interested in being is in youth and outreach. I was in youth and outreach when I was a youth rep, and I want to continue to be in that committee because I loved it. Like, it's about, obviously it says the name, it's reaching out to youth, and then that's something that is, well, it's something very special to me because being a youth, I guess we face some troubles and stuff like that. So I want to represent the youth and be an example to the community. So, and also I want to bring ideas to the table, being a youth, and learn more things too. That would help me in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate is Anelia Courtcamp. You have the floor.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's very bright on my end. But hello, I'm Anelia. I also go by Neil. I'm a 5th generation Italian American and trans woman, and I am 26 years old. So what inspired me to run is the fact that I already do a wide variety of outreach work across the Bay Area, with affiliation and doing research for multiple organizations such as DSA and Los Angeles Tenants Unions. So my public service history is that I have, worked for these organizations. I am an alumni who is published. I'm endorsed by Abundant Housing Los Angeles. And my public service history is that of a direct researcher and activist for these organizations. Right now, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm working through the One San Pedro report, and I'm sort of compiling some research on that for a couple of the organizations I'm in. I'm doing this on top of a full-time job, so I can guarantee you I am incredibly determined. As for the committee that I'm going to be finding myself on, is I am going to be on planning and land use. I'm going to be on public safety, and I'm going to be on sustainability. Planning and land use directly because I'm seeing the upcoming developments across the San Pedro area. I have critiques I would like to be made of them, as I do not feel that they are oriented enough towards, or they're not people oriented enough, essentially, and that they're rather sort of more based around profit extraction. And I find that to be unhelpful for the people of San Pedro. Public safety, because I do believe staunchly that there needs to be a reimagination of how we handle public safety in the Bay Area. And sustainability, as the port is a major polluter. It has made people in my life directly ill, and I want to help see it get to net zero emissions the way we are trying to move sort of the whole economy by 2050.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, President, did you want to allow for any questions?
Yeah, let's take one question each. How about that?
And you can't see the screen, so you want me to call on people? Or Chris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if you want to ask a question, raise your hand and we will call on you.
See Lori Jacobs.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I know that both of these candidates had run in the previous election, and I appreciate that they're back here again to commit to our Northwest San Pedro Council. I know that Adrianita continued to stay on a committee, even though she hadn't been reelected to the board. And so my question is for Anelia, in the 5 months since we had the election, Have you been attending any of the committee meetings or board meetings for Northwest?
Unfortunately, they often lined up with times where I was scheduled to work, so I've been unable to attend most of them. That said, I've been keeping up with the agendas, reading through meeting transcripts in the evenings after work, and generally keeping up with what has been going on.
Okay, I do not see any more hands. So with that, then I think we can move to vote. It is a roll call vote. Secretary will call the roll, and when he does, you will be able to say either Adrianita Reyes Cruz or Anelia Cortamp, whichever is your preference.
Okay. First one on the list is me. Vic Christensen, Adrianita. Maya Janola,
Adrianita.
John D'Amiglio,
Sorry, say again?
say again, John.
Neil.
I didn't hear John.
I think you
I
said
heard
Neil.
him say Neil.
I think
Yeah, I
so.
believe he said Neil.
Okay, that's Craig Goldfarb,
Amelia Corkamp.
Cynthia Gagne,
Adrianita.
Gwen Henry,
Oh, it's so tough. I love you both. Neil.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Oh, wow. Adrianita.
Kelly Miller,
Adrianita.
Alec Norman,
Neil.
Thomas Norman,
Ms. Reyes Cruz.
Angela Sumner,
Adrianita.
Chris Valle,
Adrianita.
we do not have a tie, so the president does not vote. Adrianita with 8, Neil with 4. So Adrianita is selected.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then, Anelia, we would certainly encourage you to participate in the committees of your choice, since you have mentioned you would like to join those committees. The best thing to do is to show up at the meetings initially, and then we can consider putting you on a committee.
Understood.
We do have I don't know who you want, Christian, to do the swearing in. We have the neighborhood council oath here. Actually, Adrianita's been sworn in, but I guess she needs to be sworn in again, so it's up to you.
Taviano still here? Taviano, would you like to swear them in? Or swear her in?
I'm still here, yes.
I believe that Maya has her hand up. I'm not sure if that's,
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I'm out of line here, but I just wanted to say before we moved on, just to thank Neil for coming and speaking as eloquently as you did. I was incredibly impressed to hear all the things that you are involved in, and I do hope that you will stay involved and help guide us on your areas of expertise. So just wanted to say thank you very much and congratulations to Adrianita. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Thank you again. Let's come to order now. We appreciate Anelia's application. We really are looking forward to serving with, again, Mr. Rios, please swear in Adrianita.
Taviano, the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Adrianita Reyes Cruz, if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Okay.
I pledge to represent my neighborhood council and stakeholders
I pledge to represent my neighborhood council and stakeholders
with dignity, integrity, and pride.
with dignity, integrity, and pride.
I will encourage other points of view,
I will encourage other points of view,
even when they differ from my own.
even when they differ from my own.
I will respect, value, and consider everyone's opinion.
I will respect, value, and consider everyone's opinion.
I will adhere to all local, state, and federal laws.
I will adhere to all local, state, and federal laws,
as well as hold other board members accountable to do the same.
as well as hold other board members accountable to do the same.
I will find the good in my neighborhood,
I will find the good in my neighborhood,
praise it, and promote it.
praise it, and promote it.
I will work to honor diversity,
I will work to honor diversity,
build community,
build community,
forge bonds with neighboring communities,
forge bonds with neighboring communities,
and promote participation in city governance,
and promote participation in city governance
and the decision-making processes.
and the decision-making processes.
To improve the quality of life for all stakeholders.
To improve the quality of life for all stakeholders.
To the neighborhood council system, to my neighbors, and to neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles.
To the neighborhood council system, to my neighbors, and to neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles.
I pledge to do this to the best of my ability.
I pledge to do this to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Board Member Reyes Cruz. You are now officially a part of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. A round of applause.
Thanks.
Excellent. Yes, Mr. Secretary, I have your hand raised.
I just wanted to let everybody know that Adrianita has already taken the training from her previous time on the board. It is still valid. So from here on, she is eligible to vote on the funding items as well as the rest.
Okay, very, very good. Mr. Secretary, what's the next order of business?
The consent calendar.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? The consent calendar items are listed on the agenda, and if anyone wants to take one off, you can request to do so now. But is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll then?
Vic Christensen, aye. Maya Denola,
Aye.
John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb. Unmute.
Aye.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
I will abstain.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Aye.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Aye.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
we have 13 ayes, 1 abstention. It passes. It carries.
Very good, Mr. Secretary. I believe now we have our committee reports and action items. So, Mr. Vice President, would you like to give the Youth and Outreach Committee report?
Yes, thank you very much. We'll just go over briefly. So as of our last meeting, I am the chair of the Youth and Outreach Committee. Lori Jacobs remains a valued member of our committee, but has stepped down as co-chair. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Lori not only for all the work that she's done in that position as chair of the Youth and Outreach, but for bringing me into the neighborhood council system, and just always being a hard worker and very tough and very effective on all of the things that the board has taken under its consideration to try and achieve. And moving forward, I will do as much as I can to try and keep up with that pace, although no promises. We talked at some length about defining, refining, formalizing what I'm going to call a production process for the e-newsletter. Essentially, what we're sort of established is that the Youth and Outreach Committee, in terms of specifically the outreach part of it, is, for want of a better term, responsible or accountable for the editorial oversight of what messages the board publishes, whether it's in social media, email, or whatever. And so it does not preclude any content generated by board members or committee chairs, but in terms of our sort of standard publications, the print newsletter, the e-newsletter, and social media, the chair of the Youth and Outreach Committee, myself, or whomever else holds the seat, would be responsible as sort of the editor-in-chief of those things, and to be cognizant and current with whatever sort of guidelines and limitations we have in terms of what messages we put out, and then to be essentially someone to whom any questions about those things can be directed, and that myself or whoever should have a reasonably intelligent answer, or why did we say that, or what does this mean, or that sort of thing. So I would request that all committee chairs and or anyone else on the board who would like to see something published to copy me on that email. So if you're going to go send something directly to Christina, please copy me on that. And unless there's some issue with it, I wouldn't have any issue. And if there is one, I might ask that something be revised, or we can have a discussion as to why it might not be appropriate. But in general, that has not been the case, and I don't foresee any changes to what goes out or how it goes out. We'd just like to make sure that there's sort of a framework that everybody's aware of, that if you have a hot action item, we can still send it out there, but we're not doing so without a significant number of people sort of having the opportunity to take a look at it before it goes out. And in that respect, and we'll get onto this a little later, our social media is something else I'd like to fold into that, in terms of requesting and encouraging submissions, whether there's something you'd like to have turned into an Instagram post, or something that is going on and you'd like to have publicized more quickly than we can do in the meetings. Email to me directly, and please use like something in the subject line that will identify it as something to be published, like for Instagram or for Facebook or whatever, so that I can sort those more easily. Before we continue to item number 4, I see Craig's hand up, and then I see Gwen.
Hi, so I've been here. Let me show my video. I've been interested in why our webpage, we have a calendar, but it doesn't really, though we link a lot with a lot of Google things, we don't link our calendar with Google. It'd make things a lot easier for me, and when a lot of times when we're scheduling, if it was all linked into the Google Calendar and I can include it, that way it'd be easy to include in the other calendars I have with Google.
You mean like a graphical grid kind of calendar?
Yeah, well, we have the calendar in there and it shows the dates, but usually
right.
you can take those calendars and put them into Google Calendar. So then instead of having to go to our webpage and get the agenda and the Zoom and all that from there, you can get it straight from the calendar.
I see what you're saying. And honestly, I use Google Calendar for everything, and that would be helpful for me as well, because if at all possible, I request like invites and things in that format, so it's easy to organize. I'll talk to Christina about, because she is the webmaster and knows if and specifically how those things would be done. So I'll talk to her and ask if that's something we can incorporate, because it's pretty flexible and she seems pretty good at formatting all that stuff. We've just not approached it that way before, but yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, and we should try and make
Yeah,
that happen.
if anything, if we could also find out if we can get the other neighborhood councils, because a lot of times when we're trying to schedule stuff, we're trying to go around what they've got scheduled also, especially like their board meetings and stuff.
That is a very good idea, and I believe she does that type of organizational work for all 3 San Pedro neighborhood councils. So that would be a good place to literally to coordinate all that stuff, and hopefully maybe generate a link to a page that all of our websites can access. That's actually a great suggestion. I will forward that to her. I see Gwen.
Chris, in regards to outreach materials, we have as a neighborhood council come across certain pitfalls in there are certain rules and regulations as to what we do promote and some of the language that we use. Is there a possibility of having a bit of a rundown for all members as to that type of communication? Some, you know, some of the restrictions we have, as well as I would hate to overburden the outreach committee with things like informational things about, for example, mosquitoes, coyotes, and that kind of thing. But if I believe that maybe Octaviano can speak about this, but we do have a tool that is available to us as a council that those of us who are more graphically inclined can access, Canva, that is available to all the neighborhood councils. I'm wondering if that could be utilized in a way for the burden to be off of outreach and be able to deliver to you content that will work within whatever protocol you come up with. For example, an Instagram sized image, and then that is easily distributed through several different media accounts.
Yeah, I think that if people are willing to take on, learning to use Canva, which I understand to be pretty straightforward, that would obviously help me if I can simply get something sent as an email attachment and then just, put it into an Instagram post, for instance, which would then be copied, I believe, to Twitter and Facebook automatically. That's good. And as to your question about sort of our specific guidelines and limitations, that is a very important thing to communicate. However, I did not prepare those specifically. So what I would do is to say, just in the general sense, what I do recall off the top of my head is that, for instance, our communication is essentially meant to be board generated content. That is, if there's something that's come to our attention or the attention of a board member or committee chair, we can include that in the e-blast. But it's intended to be an expression of what's on the board's attention, even an individual board member, so that we are not simply copy pasting, that it is an indication that one of us has at least sort of considered and processed the content of this thing. And it may be, essentially identical to information coming out elsewhere, but we would not, for instance, simply publish something that CD15 or a supervisor's office or whatever had published in the same format. We would at least need to make it into our own statement. There obviously are other sort of functional limitations, and I know City Attorney has sort of sounded off on that. Octaviano, not to put you on the spot, but I'm assuming you might be more up to speed on any of those things than I am, if you'd like to add. And if not, I will make it a point to have a specific, I'll call it a cheat sheet or whatever. I will have that available for our next board meeting. If not, maybe something I can generate as an email just to send out as an informational thing prior to that. Melanie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, two things. We have a social media policy that they release from Bonk that probably everybody should refer to.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll need to get it, make sure I have that kind of imprinted as well. Maybe I'll just generate that all into one sort of document that I can share with everybody.
And then the other thing is, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't step out of bounds when I recorded the video. Outreach wasn't involved in the event. It was just board members attending and helping with cleaning up, around the park, et cetera, et cetera. So I compiled the pictures that I took and made a slideshow and BCC'd all of the board and people that participated to allow them to see the pictures that I took, and thanked everybody. And then I included Christina on that, and Christina decided that it was very good, the pictures that were compiled, and it was a great thing to put up on the website to show what Northwest has done. Hit the moment as it happened right after it to have it up on our website. And
that's I don't think
need you, but I didn't say, here, Chris, you do it or consult.
no. That's really what it's about. I mean, ultimately, because again, I don't think this is not necessarily a response to any particular incident or issue. This is basically just having taken a look at these things and sort of wanting to sort of declare a generalized framework of how it happens, so that if in the future we ever got any pushback or feedback about, well, why did you guys publish this, or what does this mean, that at least one of us would be able to provide some kind of, like, we should have the smallest number of people possible say, oh, I don't know why that's there. So at least one or two of us would be able to explain, yes, we saw this, yes, we approved it. And so I don't think that you're generating that content or how that's just nothing wrong with that at all. It's just we wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page going forward, that that would be in your mind, that you copy me or whoever else is chair of youth and outreach, so that we can say X number of people looked at this before it went out. Because the potential always exists for one person, for whatever reason, to put something out there that might, for instance, let's say you wanted to promote an event and didn't realize it was sponsored by private business, or it was, whatever it was, or it was something that in the past had been an issue for us to sound off on. It's basically so that there's a, I wouldn't call it checks and balances, but again, it's just editorial oversight, so that you have an additional layer of accountability if anybody ever challenges us on something we put out.
What I understand about the social media policy also is anything that's generated in print representing the board, and this is what I was told, is anything that represents the board in print, like a flyer or anything like that, has to be approved by the whole board. It has to be voted on before the flyer is posted.
Well, then I will review that and adjust our.
I'm not sure 100%, but that's what I was told.
Okay, well, I'll try and find that, and if needed, just update our internal policy to reflect that.
Okay.
Yeah, again, so far, we haven't had anyone come back to us and say, has this, like a Facebook post, we haven't had anyone call us on it and say, was this voted on? It would generally eliminate the utility of having those things if there was a 1 month cycle on being able to put something on Instagram. But if that is the letter of the law, so to speak, then we will have to follow that. I'll just, I'll double check on what it is we need to make sure of.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And so briefly, item number 4, debrief on the Cabrillo Strong and Healthy Community Health Fair in the middle of last month. This was a healthcare at the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium that was organized by some healthcare companies. It was very well attended. It was very well organized. Thomas Norman was there, Doug Epperhart, and I saw Ray and Lori was there with a different organization. More than specifically what happened at this particular event, which I think was just it was a good one-stop that they were doing vaccinations and COVID screening and things like that as well, but a good place for people to come check in on just sort of healthcare resources. It was a great example to me on what, not to wipe the slate clean, and not that we haven't done a lot of good work in the past with public events, but looking forward to the time when we can start to have these and produce them on our own. This was a great example to me of a model where we can be involved in these things more often, in some cases more easily, if we don't build it from scratch ourselves. That when there's an opportunity for us to piggyback or participate in another event like this, not only is there more pairs of eyes and more people coming through, a greater opportunity to engage, sometimes out of a context that we, for instance, we would have no reason to put a health fair on ourselves per se, but if someone else is doing it, it's a great opportunity to wrap in, the sorts of things that we're talking about. And in cases of our sort of organizational red tape with respect to city clerk's office, it's much easier for us to attend someone else's event and participate than it is for us to sort of throw one ourselves and ask them to, or ask other parties to things. So it's just basically an opportunity for us to spread our footprint without having to go through all the hoops to really put it on ourselves. So it's just, if and when people find things like this going on and there's enough lead time, it would be great to bring that to our attention, and maybe we might just send somebody out with the table, for a couple hours or whatever, and it helps us do more of this thing without having to do more of this thing ourselves. I see Lori's hand up. Please go ahead.
No, great report, Chris. Just want to add too that as a government entity, we didn't have to pay the fee that other organizations did. And what a great opportunity to actually share the table with the other San Pedro neighborhood councils. Gives us a little more oomph there in our messaging. And then having the newsletters fresh off the press to pass out there were, I think, 3 or 4 organizations at the event that were mentioned in our newsletter. So we went around and distributed to them. So it was really a great networking opportunity. And I was told they had 500 plus attendees.
Yeah, I think networking is a perfect that's a great bullet point, is that whether it's sort of internally within the local neighborhood councils and other organizations that we're going to cross paths with regularly, there's, we can sort of, meet people and hang out with them, honestly, just for a little while, improve those relationships, but also to have, again, people come by at a table where there's people from, different neighborhood councils. We can talk to them about where they live and what their interests are and their issues and things like that. It's a good presentation of our brand, I suppose, for those things, and something I would look forward to. And I think it also, I think it makes it easier, like, people who might not feel like they have the time to commit to doing something or whatever, if it's simply, we know that we can honestly kind of jump onto somebody else's bandwagon for a little while. I think it will increase the frequency that we do that sort of stuff, which is just good all around. And moving on to item number 6, I'll try and move these last 2 along very quickly. We will still be proceeding with Candy Cane Lane and participation in the San Pedro holiday parade. And so we're made a motion within the committee to allocate some money to self-contained craft packets, essentially, and individually wrapped and sealed candy canes for Candy Cane Lane. And that was first and seconded. So Melanie, do we need to, oh, you're muted.
Budget and Finance brings it up.
Okay, right. Thank you. All right. And so we do have a sign up here. I guess I would like to request that if we do a sign up in terms of email to me, because that way I can just electronically keep organized what I would have to scribble on a piece of paper now and then turn into something permanent later. So there is essentially there's windows for setup, for actual sort of active participation and engagement, and then in the teardown. And this is obviously at Weymouth Corners, the 1,000, or no, is it 1,000 or is it 1,400 block of 8th Street in Northwest. Yearly event. People get to get out, walk around. It's nice and cold. Sing songs, do dances, hand out candy canes. It's wholesome. But we do need help with pop-ups and managing traffic and talking to people and really just kind of putting a face on what we do for a couple hours, and then most importantly cleaning it all up and putting it away in the evening. So please take a look at the times, the date. Do we? I don't think we ironed out a date, did we, or is it baked in yet? But please consider participation. There will be people out there, and the more the merrier, literally. And for item number 7, we're thinking about producing t-shirts, basically, kind of a uniform for us to wear when we're in the field doing in-person events, which we will again hopefully be doing in the near future, such as these 2. I've spoken to staff at Willenberg School, who I did not know had a in-house facility to basically make t-shirts. I'll have pricing available, specific pricing, but we sort of allocated a budget to produce the t-shirts, and it's something we can do exactly to scale, so we don't have to order a massive number to get a reasonable price. We can, we came up with, I believe, the ballpark of about 30, which would cover current board members, participating committee members, and a couple of spares, essentially. So,
Chris, a reminder of those, you have to get a written proposal from them.
Yes, from Willenberg.
And all that, because it has to be submitted to the city clerk.
Yes. And again, I'm in participation with them actively, so I will hopefully wrap that up tomorrow. And so anyway, yeah, it's basically ability for us to get t-shirts very, close to at cost. This is a work opportunity for the students at a school located in Northwest, and essentially a chance to kind of update our look when we do work publicly. And I have specific design in mind, but it's not, I don't have camera ready art for you to show you, but it's basically just going to be our logo, or basically the words Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council, yellow ink on a black short sleeve t-shirt, as consistent with our color scheme. And that was the meat of it for our meeting. So I saw Craig and then Gwen.
Okay, I just wanted to request that those t-shirts that you purchase be locally made in the US. I know there's several manufacturers and not just locally sourced.
I'll take that under consideration. I will I'll refer that to my contact at Willenberg. That's a very good point. Oh, and I'm sorry, and I almost forgot. Speaking of things that I would like for you to email me about, would be your preferred t-shirt size. I'm, again, I don't know if we have literally everything available to us, but I'm hoping we can get a range from about medium to, maybe XXX for myself. But please, if you need a specific size, send that to me so that I can, tally those up, and because the numbers and sizes will affect the cost to some degree. Gwen, go ahead. You're muted.
Thank you. In regards to being able to do some of these outreach events that are already pre-done, at the Dia de los Muertos event this weekend, it would have been nice to have a kit, for example, of just some things, that outreach materials that we have to be able to distribute. Perhaps in the future we could have, a packet of newsletters, and I believe all of us with business cards, perhaps a flyer which talks about the neighborhood council and how to get involved, things like that, that we can have as a kit that anybody can pick up and just have as a staple for any outreach events that anybody might be able to do.
Yeah, and we actually do kind of have that. In fact, it's behind me over there next to the dryer. It's basically tote bags with newsletters and pen holders and pens and stuff like that. And it would be something, we are still trying to figure out how to get back into office space. We had to turn keys in with the changeover in administration, so we don't necessarily have access to our office space in downtown San Pedro, which might not actually even be more convenient to get to. But for the time being, if anyone does simply want to attend something like that or needs any of those things, I'm available. So I have a small stockpile of pens, and but I think that's a good idea. And we will probably just sort of make a grab bag with those kind of ready to go things, so whoever goes where can just literally take that with them and drop it off after, or keep it until someone else needs it. And that's it for youth and outreach, unless anyone else has a question or comment. Thanks very much.
Okay, very good, Mr. Vice President. I know that we have a packed meeting with other committee reports, so let's move on. Mr. Secretary, what is the next committee?
Planning and land use with Diana Nave.
Okay, very good. Chairwoman Nave, please take it away.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I want to start with an update on the PAIP, that is the Port's Public Access Investment Plan. Recommendations for the PAIP were released at the Board of Harbor Commissioners meeting. We were extremely disappointed, although we had initially been told there would be between $35 and $42 million for projects identified by the community. The recommendations were for 4 projects totaling somewhere between 4 and 4.2 million. The port is citing a 77 million in increased cost of the projects committed during the initial 5-year cycle as the reason why they don't have more money available. The 4 projects that were recommended were 500,000 for the connectivity plan, and 900,000 for the life support system for the Cabrillo Aquarium, both of which were projects that were on the list that we had supported. They also allocated recommended 1.4 to 1.6 million for what they're calling the Harbor Boulevard Improvement Project. That's the HACLA project to develop a park along the promenade between First and Third, a project we actually opposed because it's in the rail right of way. And 1.2 million for the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center, which was funded with China shipping mitigation funds many years ago. But the port has dragged its heels on this project and still has not gotten started, and now they need to allocate additional funds for it. So these recommendations were presented to the Board of Harbor Commissioners as an informational item, and there was no indication of when they would be brought back to the board for approval. Anthony Perozzi, Commissioner Perozzi, commented that they should allocate funds now to develop a plan for the eventual move of the USS Iowa. He also asked the staff to report back on making the plan a permanent part of the port's operation. This was to be when they came up with the PAIP, there were going to be 2 5-year cycles, so a total of 10 years, and then that was the end of it. So the RFP for the connectivity plan has been released, and responses are due December 8th. The promenade and the town square, a $36 million PAIP project, has been completed. However,
what would you like me to convert $6 million?
Excuse me. It's been completed. However, this project is currently closed to the public, and it appears that it will remain so until after the adjacent West Harbor construction is completed. And they don't intend to start construction on that until at least April. So what you have before you tonight for your consideration is a motion to approve a letter to the port and the developers requesting that they find a safe way to open this $36 million investment to the public now. This letter passed with 8 yeses and 1 abstention at the committee meeting. Doug Eberhardt was not able to stay for the rest of the meeting tonight and asked me if we could make a change to the letter. He simply wanted additional language that asked that it be the promenade and the adjacent parking lot. So we could do, I don't know how you want to handle that, Mr. Chair, but you could do it, you could simply do it as if there was no objections.
Do you see the promenade letter, Diana?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, well, if there's no objection, let's add that language in.
Just for clarification, Diana, can you tell us where that language would fit in?
Yeah, I think actually it has to be a couple of times. The port just unveiled.
Before we can do that on the letter, we have to have a motion to accept the letter.
Thank you, Mr.
We have a motion, Craig. It came out of committee, so you don't need to make an additional motion.
Yeah, then you have to state it came out of committee.
I did. I stated the vote at the committee.
Very good, very good. Let's come to order. So now.
So I think what you would want to say is the port just unveiled the beautiful promenade and parking lot. You could just put it right in the first sentence. And then the second sentence, which says promenade, just add and parking lot. That's what I would suggest in terms of where to put it.
Which of us has control?
Okay,
of the
are there any other council members who'd like to make comment on the letter? Or is there anyone from the public that would like to make comment? Okay.
I don't see any hands.
Yeah, then if there's no objection, we'll include that language and then call the roll then, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, Vic Christensen, aye. Maya Genoa,
Aye.
John D'Amiglio,
Abstain.
Craig Goldfarb,
Aye.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Glenn Henry,
Aye.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Aye.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Aye.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz.
Yes.
Okay, we have, well, unanimous, other than one abstention.
Thank you. I wanted to bring you up to date on state legislation. There've been a number of pieces of state legislation that are going to have tremendous impacts on our ability to have a voice in planning. You've already seen how state legislation has resulted in developers being able to get a number of exemptions to the local community plan, such as reduced parking and taller buildings in exchange for including a certain number of units for low or very low income families. The state recently passed Senate Bills 9 and 10, which we opposed. Senate Bill 9 is the one that would allow up to 6 units on what is now zoned for a single house, and it becomes effective January 1. The city is now working on implementation ordinances, so at some point we'll be probably commenting on that. As I've mentioned before, the state is also mandating how many additional units local entities must plan for in their updated housing elements, and how many of these units need to be for each of the various income levels. Los Angeles is required to show the capacity for about 487,000 new units over the next 8 years, of which 57% must be appropriate for low or moderate income households. 487,000 is an extremely high number, given that the total population of the city is just under 4 million, and in the past 8 years, only 80,000 units were built. The state also has a lot of restrictions on what can be counted towards that potential 487,000. Their mandate basically is that new low-income units, the 57% that are low income, must be built in what they call higher resource areas, which in general translates to higher income areas. The city was able to identify potentially 231,000 new units under the current zoning. This left about 255,000 that would need to be created through new programs and upzoning. The city has then identified virtually every parcel that could potentially be rezoned for multifamily units. And that includes probably a majority of parcels in Northwest. The list that shows the parcels is on our website, and you can go in and look at what the potential upzoning for your property or change for your own property might be. The city has 3 years to actually make the zoning changes, and not all of the addresses that are listed will eventually be rezoned. So a lot of our work over the next 3 years is going to be looking at what is recommended for upzoning in our area. In addition, the county has identified at least 26 parcels in the La Rambla, which is mostly, we sort of surround La Rambla. And if they were all rezoned, that would add a capacity for about 1,675 units in La Rambla. And Rancho Palos Verdes has identified virtually every commercial property on Western Avenue that is in RPV for potential rezoning for mixed use, which could add up to 410 new units. So the next 3 years are going to be challenging as SB 9 is implemented and plans for rezoning are rolled out. Since 2017, there have been 67 new state laws that have been adopted that take planning control away from local governments. There is now an initiative to amend the state constitution to return land use to local municipalities and to allow them to supersede any previously adopted state laws. If sufficient signatures are gathered, this will appear on the ballot in 2020. And again, there's more information about this in the Joint Planning Committee report that's in your agenda packet. The Joint Planning Report, well, right where you were, you're just also, the joint also contains information about the plans that were recently approved by the city to convert the Topaz building on 6th Street into 228 apartments while retaining the ground floor commercial. The report also has information about Caltrans plans for bicycle lanes on Western Avenue, and information about the proposed transportation demand ordinance that reflects the efforts of the city to force people to give up driving by reducing parking requirements. Does some good things too, but it's somewhat problematic. And there's a number of other updates in that report. The next meeting of the Joint Committee is Wednesday, November 17th, and will include a presentation on the plans to convert the entire block across from City Hall into apartments above ground floor commercial. This is a project that has already received approval from the City Planning Department, and so it's on our agenda just as an information item. The Northwest Committee meeting focused primarily on the proposed marketplace at Target. That is the plan to sell off a ½ acre on the southwest corner of the parking lot to an entity that is proposing to build a drive-through Starbucks and a Habit restaurant. The developers came back to our committee to address a number of concerns that we had raised the first time we met with them. The biggest issue being that the location is too close to the homes. We requested that they consider moving it to the corner of Capitol and Gaffey. They consulted with Target, and Target had a representative at the meeting. Target was unwilling to consider this as they consider the corner of Capitol and Gaffey to be prime parking area. Of course, interestingly enough, they have been using that corner for storage for the last, I don't know, 9 months, a year, whatever. Their presentation and their environmental documents are posted on our website. The committee report contains additional information. At our meeting this Wednesday, we will be finalizing our preliminary comments to present to this board at probably your December meeting. And that concludes my planning and land use report, unless there are questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Secretary, what is the next committee up for?
Bylaws and elections, also Diana Nick.
Okay, very good. Continue then, Diana.
Okay, you have 2 action items before you tonight from the Bylaws and Elections Committee. And maybe we can put the first one up. It's a motion to approve a letter to the General Manager of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners relative to a map, the map that shows the boundaries of our neighborhood council. When the census tract boundaries changed and we had to make a change as a result of that in terms of our internal boundaries, this board decided to keep the same internal boundaries and just simply rename the 4 sub-areas. The department then gave us a new map showing the areas with the new names on it. That map, however, did not follow the original outside boundaries, which should not have changed. Areas that had been included in Northwest on both the west side and the east side were no longer included. They now show up in Coastal and Wilmington. So what you have before you tonight is a letter asking the department to clarify and correct the situation. This motion passed the committee unanimously. Are there questions?
Do you want me to put the map up? Because I can't show both at the same time, but I
Only
can.
if someone has a question, I think. If someone has a question, we'll put it up.
Okay, very good. So let's clarify that this is out of committee and it passed unanimously. And are there members of the public or members of the council that have any questions or that wish to make comment?
Okay. Well, if not, then Mr. Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
Victor, Stefan, aye. Maya Denola, Maya Denola,
I'm sorry, what was that?
what is your vote on this letter?
I'm gonna abstain.
John DeMiglio,
I'm gonna abstain.
Craig Goldfarb,
Aye.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes, or aye, which I got in the habit of saying.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz.
Yes.
Other than 2 abstentions, it's unanimous, so this carries.
Great, thank you. The next item is also a motion to approve a letter to the General Manager of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and to the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. This one is relative to the concept of the quorum of a quorum interpretation of the Brown Act. Basically, the letter points out that the quorum of a quorum is not applied, that rule is not applied to other city bodies, and asks why the neighborhood councils are being treated differently. It also asks that there be a written finding from the city attorney if indeed we have to follow the quorum of a quorum rule. The motion passed the committee with 2 yes votes and 2 abstentions.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions or yes, Mr. Goldfarb, Councilman Goldfarb, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't find this motion to be actually very well written, and some of it's not really factual. Portion about it not being in the Brown Act. It is referred to in the Brown Act. So I didn't feel that it was really, I abstained, but I probably should have voted no. And I think that, having more than the quorum concept is pretty self-evident of showing how something can be overdone by a committee and not be voted on and allowed to be voted on in a board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Who else has their hand up? Yes, go ahead. Councilmember Henry.
I believe that Octaviano might have a perception on quorum of the quorum. And I would appreciate his feedback on this.
Okay, we can get his feedback after Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, I think feedback is all fine and dandy, I think, for things, but I think at this point we need it in writing. We need to have someone state that this is indeed fact, that it says, okay, you can't have no more than 5 board members on a committee because you have 9 that's a quorum. It needs to be in writing. And instead of just he said, she said, oh, you aren't supposed to just because somebody said it. It has to be written in writing. And then we can proceed with the rule. But until then, till it's in writing, it's just a he said, she said moment,
Okay, very good. Let's have Council Member Denola, then Octaviano if he wants to speak, and then Mr. Vice President.
Okay, I mean, if Octaviano is going to clear, because I'm just struggling to understand, when this letter was written, did anybody confirm the Brown Act piece of it? So that's one piece, if somebody can speak to whether or not anybody actually checked that that's factual. And second of all, I'm not sure that it matters whether or not it's the Brown Act. If there is indeed a discrepancy between different forums as to what is acceptable, then that's a completely different issue. So I'm just confused. When this letter was written, did anybody verify this?
This is a letter specifically to clarify, a clarification as to the definition of a quorum of quorum that the Department of that Dunn and the Board of Commissioners want to, how they want to proceed. They're
Okay.
quorum of a quorum definition.
Okay, but it's,
Point of order. Thank you for
sorry,
rising.
go ahead. I would just say then, if that's what you're trying to say with this letter, that's certainly not what's written. What's written is a statement of fact about the Brown Act, not a request for clarification of interpretation. It's, you're making a statement in this letter that the Brown Act does indeed state quorum of quorum. So I just want to know whether or not, is that factual? I mean, I have no idea. If it is factual, then that's great. If we're just asking for clarification on whether or not the Brown Act states that, then that probably just needs to be reworded.
Please read the third paragraph, Maya. That's where we're asking for clarification.
Let's come to order now, and then if you have Mr. Rios, if you'd like to add any insight, and then after that, Mr. Vice
Actually,
President.
I would just like to respond.
Yeah, Pat Nave, are you still listening?
Yeah,
Let's come
that
to order.
third paragraph does not ask for clarification whether or not the Brown Act states that. It asks for clarification on what a quorum of a quorum is.
I would ask either Pat Nave or Tim Acosta, both former city attorneys, if they, if that is not indeed the case in terms of the fact that the concept does not appear in the Brown Act.
Okay, well, that would be good. Let's first get Octaviano Rios to see if he has any insight. After that, Mr. Vice President, and then after that, if Mr. Nave or Mr. McCosker wants to speak, we'll take that then. So, Mr. Rios, are you available?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is Octaviano Rios with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. We do have a document that we've shared in the past titled The Brown Act's Limitations on Discussions by Neighborhood Council Board Members. And it does touch on serial communication and advice that the department and the city attorney's office gives to neighborhood councils in order to avoid incidents of serial communication. Even though, and I looked through it, it's a 3-page, 4-page document. It doesn't explicitly mention quorum of a quorum or majority of a quorum. But it does mention avoiding not posting or posting your agendas in compliance with the Brown Act and the convening of meetings without posting agendas in compliance with the Brown Act. So we can go into we can go a little bit into the majority of a quorum rule, but it's a little bit of a longer conversation and explanation. I think the request to the city, as stated in the letter, is appropriate. If you want to get a little bit more details as to the neighborhood councils compared to the city council, for example, that's something that I can't necessarily address tonight, unfortunately, without the assistance of the city attorney's office and maybe higher supervision in the department. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Yeah, and that, and thanks, Octaviano, for that. I understand you're saying as much as you can on the subject. And that to me sort of underscores the nature of our issue is that we looked at it in terms of literally in terms of arithmetic. That is, if you were theoretically to have, let's say 5 or 6 people on a committee who were also board members, it would not necessarily give you the numbers to pass that motion at the board anyway. It's not necessarily a practical consideration in every scenario. It would also depend on how many people are in attendance at a board meeting, how many board members you had in the first place, X, Y, and Z. But what we really sought was, a clear indication, and considering in the past city attorney and city clerk and Dunn sometimes have not necessarily hesitated to let us know when we stepped out of line or when we're doing something that was specifically prohibited. I find it strange and a little curious at this point. It's taken so long to get even sort of a fairly vague, to be honest, comment on this. So I think that the intent of the letter, setting aside for the moment whether or not the Brown Act specifically does refer to this, is something we absolutely have to press, because it just shouldn't, we'd be fine following whichever rule. We just need to receive it,
Okay, thank you. Let's take Mr. Timothy McCosker, and then after that, Mr. Secretary. Go ahead. If you're there.
There we go. Thank you very much. I just raised my hand because I was asked if I could speak on this subject. I would say first that I think what Chris just said is exactly right. Tell us, city attorney, what the rules are, and we will follow those rules, because the most important thing for you is that all business it be open and public. I will also say that I have been a city attorney for the city of Los Angeles in the past, but I am not one now. And I've been a city attorney for multiple jurisdictions, but I'm not serving as your attorney. With that caveat, I will also say there is no quorum of a quorum concept written into the Brown Act. What the Brown Act says is that all business of the legislative body, and you are a legislative body, and your committees are legislative bodies, sub-bodies, all of that business has to be open and public, which is means that you do exactly what you always do. You post your agenda items, you welcome in stakeholders like me to speak. If I need to speak, you let me listen to your decisions. And that is a different rule than the seriatim rule, which is a rule that prevents you from something that you don't ever consider doing, and that's having meetings one by one, talking to each other. So all of that being said, and I probably have made this more confusing than it need be, but it would just be important for you to get advice from council as to what is the rule for you to follow. But again, I will say there is no concept in the Brown Act of a quorum of a quorum. So thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Yes, thanks very much. That was very useful.
It was helpful. Okay. We hope to see you again. Mr. Secretary, go ahead.
Okay, given the previous comment, mine may be a bit moot, but I was kind of siding with what Maya Janola said. What is the intent of the letter? If the intent of the letter is to ask clarification on the quorum of a quorum concept, that's one thing. If the intent of the letter is to ask why it is being applied differently to different bodies, that's another thing. From what we just heard, the quorum of a quorum is not in the Brown Act. Therefore, that part is probably moot. So if the intent of this letter is indeed to ask for why this rule is being applied differently, then I think the letter is fine as written. But bottom line is, we do need something in writing, as multiple people have said, from the city attorney, clarifying what is the actual rule and will it be applied. Well, this may be not for the letter, but that's an amendment to a possible amendment. And whether it will be applied evenly and fairly across all bodies and not differently as it is currently being done. But as far as how that quorum of a quorum issue works, it is purely a math problem, which, as Octaviano said, would be a longer conversation. But again, if we are asking just for clarification on why it's being applied differently, then the letter appears fine to me.
Okay, very good. Let's get Mr. Patnave and then decide how we want to dispose of the motion, whether it be voting on it or referring it back to a committee or tabling it or whatever we want to do. Okay, so Mr. Patnave.
No, can't hear you.
Thank you. I have two comments. One is that this is a practical matter that affects all of the committees on the neighborhood council. It constantly comes up that if a committee, for example, has 4 board members on it, can a fifth board member become a member of the committee? If it's a quorum of a quorum, then a fifth board member can't be a member of the committee and has to be careful when they participate and go to a committee meeting. So that's come up a number of times over the last several years. One example is the Port Committee. There are 4 board members currently on the Port Committee, and from time to time, other board members may wish to attend and speak and participate. So it's important to get it clarified. The second thing is that uniformity is kind of the thrust of this letter. It's difficult to understand if some commissions or council, city council or harbor commission or whatever, are being advised one thing and neighborhood councils are advised another. It'd be nice to know if that's true, and if so, why is it so? I do have a suggestion, though, and that is that in the second paragraph, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the word why, where it says we would like to know why the Brown Act is being interpreted differently. Maybe if you change the word why to if, and it would say we would like to know if the Brown Act is being interpreted differently when it comes to neighborhood councils than for other city bodies. Something along those lines, and ask them to explain why it's different, if it is.
Okay, well, I think we've had a very healthy and lengthy discussion on this. Mr. Vice President, do you want to give the last comment before we close this out?
Yes, just very briefly, just to go a little farther with what Pat suggested. And it's really for me to, because if we're sort of being given this direction, this guideline, that this whole quorum of requirement thing came up in the first place, and having referred directly to the Brown Act itself, not finding its basis there, I'd like to know what their derivation of that rule is. So if they're considering it to be something that we're directed to do, I'd like to know where they got, what that is based on, if the law itself doesn't support it. Some clarification as to how they came up with that direction for us.
Christian, may I? I think I can answer that question for him.
Name, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, I think it has to do with the attorneys that are assigned to the different boards and commissions around the city. There's something like 41 of them. And then we have some that are assigned to the neighborhood councils and to Dunn. And sometimes they answer questions a little differently depending on which board or commission they're addressing. So what this letter addresses is uniformity.
Yeah,
Any written opinion from the city attorney will help with that.
And I didn't realize that there was such a large number of sources for that type of direction. So that helps explain why maybe we're in this particular.
Yeah, there's an old saying that you got to read the tax code like a love letter. Read it between the lines, and that's what lawyers do when a statute comes down and it's not explicit on something, they interpret it.
Okay. That's useful. Thank you.
Let us come to order now then. There are multiple ways we could dispose of the motion. We could offer an amendment. We could refer back to the committee with power to act, or refer back to the committee to make a report in the future. We could vote on it tonight. So I'm going to I don't know, Mr. Vice President, what would you like to do? Would you like to make a motion of any?
I would like to move that we vote on the motion with the previous amendments.
Motion's already on the floor.
I guess to approve the amendments then?
So you might do
There is no amendments. It was.
There is no amendment.
I thought there were changes in the verbiage. No?
Let us come to order. And there were several suggestions. I don't think there was any formal amendment. So I don't know, Mr. Secretary, do you want to, if you could, you want to summarize the amendments from what I gather it was to change one word from why to if, and then there was also maybe there was a moot point with there being quorum of a quorum in the Brown Act. So I think those are the two things I heard. Anything else, Mr. Secretary, do you remember?
Well, I think Tim McOsker already answered the question of that the letter appropriately states that the quorum of a quorum issue is not in the Brown Act. So I think we're okay with that part.
Yes.
As
Maybe just
far
why
as
the if.
changing the Y to an if,
Yeah.
that's a possibility, but no one has formally made a motion for an amendment for that. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay, well then I would like to move that we approve that change. I mean, I guess it's almost a grammatical change from why to if on the as the singular change to the document.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
A second.
Okay, I think it was seconded by Alexander Norman.
Yep.
And Mr. Goldfarb, would you like to make comment?
I just don't know why we're, why we're just not using our facility to speak directly to the our city attorney and ask him before we start writing letters. I mean, we have attorneys, an attorney that you can, I believe it's the president, can directly talk to or converse with, and why that hadn't been used before. It just seems to me that we waste a lot of time with the, with verbiage on letters that really I still don't see as being a clear letter. And though the concept of quorum is not in the Brown Act, the concept of what they were talking about was. I looked it up when we were discussing this in the meeting. So I think we should at least, if not send this back to the committee, that we should at least have, you could give a call and find out a lot quicker.
We could try that. I'll offer my own insight as being a president of another neighborhood council in the past, and communicating with the city attorneys is not always easy. And so perhaps a direct vote from a Democratic body would help out a little. So, but you're right, it is a little longer, but democracy is not always easy, as we're finding out, but it's always, I think, the best thing in our society that we've come up with so far. So let's see, well, who else do we have to make comments on the amendment? Mr. Thomas Norman.
Pat and Thomas Norman.
I appreciate the spirit of the amendment, but my experience with these bodies is it's normally best for the body to speak through formal resolution, especially with large bureaucratic bodies. So I think that would apply to the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Madam Treasurer, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, the amendment, I think it makes sense to do what Victor suggested, or Chris suggested, the if.
Yeah.
It isn't in the Brown Act, and this is just for them, and it's going to be different for each even neighborhood council, because not everybody has 17. Not everybody, some have 11, some have 10, some have 25 people. So depending on how many you have in your neighborhood council, that's what your quorum is. Ours are 17, so our quorum is 9. So half of that, so our maximum, if you go by quorum of quorum, is to have only 4 board members on a committee. If that were to happen, planning and land use would be in violation, and youth and outreach with 7 or 8 board members now on their committee would have to reduce to 4. So it's very important to clarify this and find out whether or not we're top heavy. And the reason for this is when you have a quorum of a quorum, especially if there's 8 people, 8 board members on a committee, decisions are being made before they come to the board. And that is not supposed to happen. And that's the purpose of quorum of a quorum. So really, this letter needs to go out to have clarification on this, what the guidelines are for that.
Okay, well, is there an objection to just making that small change from the what to the if, or the why to the if? And if there's no objection, let us see if there's any other motions that could modify it further, and then if not, we'll take the roll.
I move the motion be amended with the why in the second paragraph be amended to if.
Okay, there was a motion made. There was a second. Who was the second?
Sorry, made and seconded. It was already made and seconded, moved and seconded.
Okay, so can we call for the vote then?
Yeah, go ahead and call for the vote. This is for the amendment now, Mr. Secretary. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is solely for the amendment.
Yeah, that was the motion made, so we're just gonna dispose of it formally now and then move forward with the amended motion if the amendment passes.
Right, so this particular vote is only for the amendment, not for the final letter after the amendment.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Vic Christensen, aye. Maya Denola. Remember to.
Aye.
What, sorry, Maya?
Yes.
John DeMiglio,
Abstain.
Craig Goldfarb,
Aye.
Cynthia Gagne,
Abstain.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Aye.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz.
Yes.
Other than 2 abstentions, it's unanimous, it carries.
Okay, very good. So the motion has been amended. Are there any further modifications that the council would like to make? And if not, we will take the vote.
There are none.
Mr. Secretary, go ahead.
Okay, on the final letter now that the amendment has been carried. Vic Christensen, aye. Maya Denola,
Aye.
John DeMiglio,
Abstain.
Craig Goldfarb,
Nay.
Cynthia Gagne,
No.
Christian Guzman,
I will vote aye. Aye.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Aye.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz.
Yes.
Okay, we have 11 ayes, 2 nays, 1 abstention, that carries.
Okay, very good. What's the next order of business?
Budget and Finance Committee report, Melanie LeBrecq.
Go ahead, Madam Treasurer.
Diana, can you mute?
Alrighty, so here we go. So the first thing is the MER. And right now, we have $33,488.83 left. Total expenses were the mailroom, our minute keeper, which we had for the first time paid one last meeting. The rest of the newsletter expenses. So that's the MER. It's at a committee, so any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Thomas?
Aye.
Victor?
Aye.
Maya?
I think Maya? Yeah, yes.
Maya, sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure it was me.
John DeMiglio.
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian. Mr. President. Mr. President, are you there?
Yeah,
Gwen.
I was voting aye.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
myself, yes. Kelly,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Ms. Valier,
Aye.
and Alec, you can't. Okay, so the next.
Hang on, one more, Adrianita.
Oh, Adrianita, I'm sorry. Adrianita. Adrianita? You're muted.
Okay, sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Vic. Budget. So as you see, it's the same amount. So it balances out, just out of committee. So Thomas,
Aye.
Victor. Victor,
Aye.
Maya,
Aye.
John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian,
Aye.
Gwen,
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Chris Valier,
Yes. Aye.
and Alec Norman, abstain, Adrianita.
Yes.
Okay. All righty then. So next, this is a request that we received from Hank. And here's the email, and it's also in the minutes for Hank, that all the neighborhood councils, Hank is basically what it's called is Harbor Area Neighborhood Council Alliance. And what it is compromise of the whole, all of the 5 or 6 neighborhood councils, and they get together once a month, which is going to be quarterly now. And they talk about the things going on in the harbor, each representative from each neighborhood council. And so what's happened is their fees have come up, and they have to have their website renewed. And so each neighborhood council is going to share in the cost of that. And so they've asked for $60 from each neighborhood council to pay for that. And so this is out of committee. So is there any discussion?
The minute taker's hand is up.
I just saw that.
Yeah, I saw. Do you have a question, Madam Minute Taker, on what we're discussing, or did you want to make a comment on it?
I had a question back on the MER. Was that also at a committee?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. All these are out of committee.
Thank you kindly.
Okay. I actually did want to make a comment and say that I used to attend the Harbor Alliance when I had the evenings off, and it's a great sounding board. It's a great alliance of different perspectives. So I encourage anyone who wants to go and meet your fellow council members from across the region and the harbor, go. And I would like us to support this.
Actually, I did a boo-boo. We have to go back to the MER because the MER was not ready for the board, for the committee meeting. And so it needs a first and a second to do it. I did a boo-boo. I'm sorry.
Madam Treasurer, can we dispose of this one then, and then we'll go back?
Okay. So with this, any other questions about this, and we'll call for the. So, Thomas,
Aye.
John Barbera,
He's absent.
Vic Christensen,
Aye.
Maya.
I'll abstain.
Okay. John DeMaglio.
I'll abstain.
Okay. And Craig.
Aye.
Already. Cynthia.
Aye.
Christian.
Aye.
Gwen.
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly.
Yes.
Angela.
Yes.
Chris.
Aye.
Adrianita.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. So back to the MER.
Yeah, just to move along, would you like to move it and then I'll second it?
I'll move it and you second. So minute taker, it wasn't at a committee. You were right. So I'm going to move it and Chris is going to and Christian's going to second.
I had that.
Gina.
I have that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, I can now.
Yes, I have that down. Thank you very much.
You. Next is this is a motion to approve $225 for candy canes and sealed individual craft kits for the kids to take away rather than doing a craft table. They'll just take them. This is out of committee. So any discussion?
There is a hand up.
I see Cynthia.
Yeah.
What do the craft kits consist of?
One said was a Santa Claus and the other one's like a candy cane kit, and they just take them home and put them together rather than at the table. Because of COVID, they can't sit at the table and do crafts.
Okay, I was just wondering what they were. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, call for the vote. Thomas?
Aye.
Let's see, Victor?
Aye.
Maya?
Yes.
John DeMaglio?
Yes.
And Craig?
Aye.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Christian?
Aye.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris Valier?
Aye.
And Adrianita?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. All done.
Wonderful. What is the next order of business, Mr. Secretary?
Hand up.
Community issues report. However, neither co-chair is here.
Gwen has her hand up.
I did have a question. Will the t-shirts be a budget item at some time in the future?
Yes, they'll
Yes,
be.
we have to get the pricing.
And are they long sleeve or short sleeve?
The invoice has to be submitted as well as, then we'll approve the amount of the budget and everything once they have an invoice to go with it, and we'll send it on to the city clerk once it's approved by the board. It'll have to go to the board meeting.
The concept right now is just black short sleeve t-shirts.
I think I also saw Cynthia's hand up. Did you have an point of information you wanted to get solved?
I'm okay. She answered a question from before. It was already answered.
Oh, very good. Mr. Secretary, did you attend the issues committee then? Do you want to give a very brief summary before we move on?
Melanie, if you can bring up the report.
Okay.
Let's see, just highlights the skate park is slowly progressing. It will take a while to get it up in operation. Navy is still working on the fuel depot that's on Gaffey. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a whole lot I can add to this, so it may be quicker just to have people read, but for those who may not be able to see it, I can say a little bit. There are some lights, swag lights. I think they have an official name, and I'm not sure swag is the right one, but there are some lights out and on Weymouth corners that are out, and I believe that is being worked to try to get the chamber to re-illuminate those, especially by the Candy Cane Lane date on December 3rd. There's still a lot of congestion on Western around First Street and Weymouth. And I went there myself today, and that is a very short light to turn left off of Western to Weymouth. And that is, we're trying to find out what's going on there and try to fix that problem so there's not so much traffic, especially in that left turn lane. And that's all for now.
Okay, great. And we saw that the report was submitted in writing. Do we have one question from Council Member Henry?
Yes, was there any information as to who the potential lessee is over at the Navy Fuel Supply Depot?
I don't recall there being anything specific about any particular ones.
After all this time, I consider that a concern that maybe an inquiry could be made.
Council Member DeMeglio, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. He hasn't said who is going in yet. They haven't decided, they haven't made seems like they know of, they have something, but they haven't disclosed it yet.
I do seem to remember hearing that there was at least one, but as John said, they haven't said anything about names yet.
Mr. Vice President, did you have your hand up?
Yes, just real briefly, in terms of the process of bidding on government contracts, they do not disclose information about potential bidders or the status of those bids until the decision has been made and becomes public. This is public money, so they don't allow any sort of differential access to information before they have an official judgment.
Thank
So
you.
if you were registered as a vendor, you might be able to see who the other bidders were, but you would have had to already register as a vendor to have access to that.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. What's the next item before us, Mr. Secretary?
Public safety, Melanie Lebrecq.
Okay, this is a big one, so go ahead.
Okay, so first thing, we had the cleanup on this Saturday, and thank you to those that showed up. Angela, Tom, Alec, Diane, you guys were great. There was a mess. The video went out to everybody, and with partnering with San Pedro CPR, it was great because George had all the tools and everything that we needed to do everything. And some of those women, there was an encampment over by Target on Gaffey, and these two women got in there because the person wasn't there, but it was a mess, and they cleaned that whole thing, crawled under there and pulled everything out. It was like, oh my God, it was huge. And so they did a wonderful job. Everybody did. And I'm really thankful. We really were able to represent our neighborhood council. We're going to be doing a letter for Rec and Park but it's going to be after the first of the year, because we've decided that after some input that we really need to identify someone above locally, what we have here, to do a letter and take it further up the chain, because we aren't getting results. Now the status of that bathroom at Harbor Highlands is leave it unlocked and just let it be for now until they decide what other type of lock is sufficient, because too much money is being spent to lock it. And the locks keep getting broke, the magnetic locks. And so now we have drug people staying in there nightly in the park, in the bathroom, and it's totally destroyed. So, yeah. So something else is going to have to be done because locally they aren't doing anything at the Rec and Park. So this is the big topic. As I stated before, we went to CPAB. I'm the CPAB representative, and I was just really taken back sitting there through the meeting with some of the comments that were made. And Chris was there too at the meeting as vice president, and he just was taken back because there was a lot of the conversation. They just weren't answering questions, and they kept bringing up, well, they must have been Antifa, and Antifa would have been there, it would have been escalated, and they kept talking about Antifa. And I really truly believe that the community deserves more answers than what they were given as to why this event even occurred. We had CD15 stating that this event was not permitted, that it was not going to happen, all over social media. Then they send 118 cops there that day, and they let the event happen. They came, and they were threatening to some people that were in the park, that were there in a public park, telling them they couldn't be there, and questioning them about whether or not they were Antifa. They were chest bumping people, physically assaulting people. They said there was no weapons, but yet I've seen pictures of bear spray, of big long knives. So we need to get to what the answer to this is and what the bottom line is, because what we've done now is endorsed an invitation to them that they can come back and do whatever they want in our parks, because it's going to be okay, permit or not. And the only answer that LAPD gave everybody is that they didn't declare unlawful assembly because it changed from an event to a protest, and that it's a First Amendment right for them to be there. And that was the only answer really they gave to anybody. And I think we all deserve more in the community. So I'm going to present the motion first, and then I'll take questions. What the motion is, because what we want from this is 100% support from the board to take this forward and get the other neighborhood councils to support this. And we do the town hall rather than LAPD do the town hall, because then it's the public doing it versus, some biased type town hall being done that, they direct. It will be directed here, and we'll invite them to it to answer the questions. So motion is to schedule a town hall special meeting, and I've got it on here. Motion is schedule a town hall special meeting on November 24th, 2021 at 6 to 8 p.m. regarding the Proud Boys event that took place at Point Furman Park on October 16th, 2021. The reason to request is for clarity and consistency in policy across the LAPD, as well as to address community questions that have gone on unanswered. That's the motion. So this is straight out of public safety, and any questions?
Melanie, you might want to bring up the agenda that has the motion on it with the times and everything. This version does not have that.
Yep. So here we go. Whoa, don't scroll away. There we go. So, Chris, I'm going to take you first.
Thank you. And I'd like to start off by saying I appreciate the number of people who attended the CPAB meeting. And at the conclusion of that meeting, Craig Goldfarb contacted me more or less immediately. We were, I think, really instantly kind of on the same page in terms of our dissatisfaction with the nature and the content of the answers and the explanations that have been given. And it seemed pretty clear that the conversation had to continue. Sergeant Son, I believe, of the Harbor Precinct did mention that there would be some effort to have a more expanded meeting that the that Harbor would facilitate, but it would seem almost in that moment that it would be much better for us to take that on, as it is more or less built into our mission statement to have these types of conversations. I reached out, so we sort of came to that we sort of agreed that we need to talk about this more. I reached out to leadership at Central and Coastal. They said, at least at the top level, that they didn't bite. I believe there may be board members and those other neighborhood councils who we can reach out to otherwise. And obviously the publicity end of this will be important in order for us to let people know that this is a conversation we wish to have happen. In terms of the progression of this idea within Northwest, I felt personally, and I believe the other people were in agreement, that this is something I personally did not want this to be a bee in my bonnet that I felt needed to happen because I wanted answers. We're reaching out to everybody on the board now, not necessarily that we have to, because any committee could host a special meeting of its own volition, but for this particular issue and the things that it touches, however politically and personally and emotionally charged they might be, we think it's really important that all board members are aware of this, at least have a chance to sound off. And regardless of your attitude towards policing or this event or whatever, what we're asking for is a kind of a clearing of the air and a reset in terms of our expectations in policy. What does LAPD say versus what they do? City attorney and parks and all these agencies who and CD15 who are sending out different messages at different times, and they're either followed up on or they're not. And average people are left to look at the situation and hope for the best, hope that nobody does anything more drastic, hope that it doesn't escalate. And it just seemed from the nature of the answers that we got at the time that the captain wasn't prepared to tell us as much, or what's, it seemed that he attempted to put our concerns to rest without really addressing the nature of our questions. And we would simply like to invite more people to participate in this conversation, have other agencies, and really sort of make it clear what our expectations are as a community in terms of the message we send to outside groups who are known nationally and even internationally as opposed. And just as one example, and as my kind of closing comment on this, the captain said that these people who were alleged members of the Proud Boys movement, et cetera, were unknown to him. They didn't know who these guys were. And my first thought was, you're a police captain in the city of Los Angeles. It's one of the biggest police departments in the country. And this is a nationally recognized hate group. I'm absolutely certain there's someone at the FBI that you could call and say, hey, who are these Proud Boys guys? They don't have any secret about their membership in this group. And so if you were to ask someone who's got the list, and then you have a name, you have the names of these people, you couldn't give me an answer such as, well, we didn't know who these people were. We didn't know these were Proud Boys, or et cetera. And he did go out of his way to, call out Antifa, who in so much as doesn't exist, certainly wasn't in attendance here. So I just think that intended to try to put this thing to bed too quickly and too casually for my personal taste. I feel other people are on that same page. And I would just hope that as a community, we require that they take us more seriously and take these types of things more seriously, because we got away light with this one. Nobody got hurt, everything more or less wrapped up, but I don't want this to become a standard where people feel like they can come and just, that they almost a little too sympathetic in the part of the police department if they come and next time it's not as easygoing. So thank you very much. Who's up next?
Gwen?
just a point of clarification, is Northwest San Pedro going to create its own town hall, or is this a motion to schedule a joint town hall special meeting with Central and Coastal?
Well, as
It-
Chris
Yeah,
said,
they weren't interested in doing a joint meeting. It's not functionally necessary, especially in the Zoom format. So, it's something we could have done even from the committee level, or that public safety could have done from the committee level. But I wanted sort of a buy-in from board members, which is why we're bringing it up here.
Thank you.
okay, Christian?
Yes, I think I'm very, very proud of the council members for wanting to do this. I believe in the philosophy of government by the people, of the people, and for the people. So I think at the town hall, there will be many questions that hopefully will be answered in many perspectives from the community. So I hope this is very successful in the future.
Diana? You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds like a great idea. I do have a couple of comments and questions, and the first one has to do with the fact that the 24th is the night before Thanksgiving. And I just wondered if maybe you might consider a different date. The other comment is this is a very emotionally charged issue, and I'm wondering who is going to moderate the forum. And then my third comment is the police department going to be a part of this?
Yes.
I'm assuming they are, but I'm not clear.
Yeah, the invitations are going to be sent to multiple agencies. Again, we want to have the broadest participation possible and give them enough time. In reference to the date, I think we meant for 24th to be a fallback date. Now, the 16th was a date referenced in the, I think we wanted to give people significant time to respond and, hem and haw, but we wanted to have, if there was not a commitment to the earlier date, that we have another one sort of as we want to give them a reasonable chance to respond, after which we'd have to simply criticize them for not doing so. But we were able to come up with a very small number of dates that would just fit functionally within the rest of our calendar.
What dates would that be?
I thought, well, in the other document, it said the 16th, but let me pull up my calendar here.
The 16th was too soon, we decided, Chris.
It's awfully soon.
Yeah,
We
I'm
decided
sorry,
no other committees were meeting. And then the alternate date that we decided on was the 29th, but outreach would have to move.
oh, I'm sorry, that's right. That was the fallback date, yeah. We had 29th as sort of a fail-safe, and figuring that if we had significant, intent to participate, that it would be, and, so the priority of having this special meeting would justify the inconvenience of moving the outreach meeting if we had to do that.
I would just suggest to you that it might be better attended on the 29th and the 24th.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty good advice. We could probably go ahead and amend that.
And then I did have the two other questions. I already answered one of them, but the other question had to do with who was going to moderate the forum.
We didn't have a specific, if there are any volunteers, anybody more moderate than myself, because I was thinking I might end up doing it. But if anybody else would volunteer or has a suggestion for someone else, that would be welcome as
Yeah,
well.
you might actually think about a community member. Doesn't have to be a board member that does it.
That's a good idea. That's a very good idea, actually.
We could do that, and Chris and I would be co-hosts for it, and then just yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
In terms of moderating, there are certainly organizations, if you will, within the broader Los Angeles community. I am a board member of one of those organizations that could potentially provide a moderator.
Could it be volunteer or?
As a volunteer. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That
Why
would
don't
be great.
you reach out to myself and Chris offline?
You got it.
Does my hand show is up? Can't I know?
Okay. Just a
John
second.
DeMiglio's hand's been up for a while. Can somebody
The other hands up,
call on
Pat,
him?
so just a moment, okay? Craig's next.
I'm sorry, John DeMiglio's hand have been up for a while.
Okay.
I will speak, but I would,
Okay,
seems
I'll
fair
take
that he
John
does.
take John first then.
John?
Yeah,
You're raised.
Dan Brown, before this event happened, spoke of it at our board meeting. He said it was gonna happen, it wasn't permitted, and to stay away from it,
Right.
basically. You know, that did happen, and he said they were gonna have plenty of police there. I didn't show up because I was told not to. I don't know how many people were there at this event, the people supporting this event.
300.
300 people, and I don't know how many police officers they had and how many undercover police officers they had.
118 police officers.
118. Okay, so it was very well staffed by the LAPD. So this isn't the first event that they've had. They've had one at Royal Palms that fizzled out. You know, sometimes you can't give these people a platform, and you keep going there and protesting these people. You know, it's just a waste of time. These people are sick people, and we need to stay away from that. And this is what they want. They want confrontation, and I was told to stay away from it. This is known, it was going to happen, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, I can address this because a lot of this had to do with this is not about the Proud Boys event per se. It's about the police's response to the community's questions.
Exactly.
It's when we went to when people from the community came to the CPAB meeting, they asked specific questions, and a lot of the preamble from
You got muted again.
You muted.
Yeah, mute.
Greg, you went mute.
There were certain things that Captain Mastic said that wouldn't be allowed, and that was like sticks that could to hold up signs that could be used to attack people, weapons, alcohol, etc. It was a laundry list, and all those things on that laundry list were evident at the meeting. There's pictures to show it. Eyewitnesses from the community saw these things, and that was why the community were sitting here and saying, well, the captain's saying this, and he was talking to different things. He specifically said there were 300 people there who he didn't know who they were, which, as like Chris pointed out, was really bizarre. Then he goes and says, but there was 15 people from Antifa there. I've asked eyewitnesses there, were there people dressed in all black? And they said, no, you know, there was nobody in uniform. This was all, the real question for us was, why were the police, the captain, responding in this bizarre manner and not addressing the community? And it seemed to me that he had a bias, and it was definitely not something that the community, that represented our community.
Thanks, Craig. Maya? Go ahead and go.
Thank you. Craig, I just want to support you at 100% on that comment.
Yeah.
This has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not the event should have happened or shouldn't. I mean, that's a completely different conversation. The problem is and continues to be Harbor Division's response, LAPD's response to the community concerns prior to the event, during the event, and certainly after the event. And let me go directly on record and say, absolute complete bullshit. I do not buy that a captain at LAPD has no idea who the Proud Boys are. Really? That's like me saying I have no idea who I am.
Yes.
It's absolutely absurd at a level that is just plain insulting. And that's what really gets at me, is that that man whose salary comes from the revenues of this city, from my business, from my home ownership, has the audacity to get up in front of my community and treat me like I'm an idiot and call other members of my community liars to their face, saying that the videos that the community submitted were taken out of context, videos of knives big enough to cut any one of our heads off. So I don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about there were no weapons.
Yeah.
There is so much evidence. It's absolutely disgusting. And let me just go ahead and say this as someone who's been in contact with LAPD, with Harbor Division specifically, and I've been on both sides of this issue. I have been in contact with them when we were getting directly harassed and threatened by white supremacists in San Pedro for our peaceful protests. And we did not get assistance from Harbor Division, who told us very clearly, let us know when they actually do something, right? And I've also been on the opposite side of it, and will tell you all, this is, you know, public knowledge, that I am going to see the Los Angeles County DA next month to be a witness in one of these cases against one of the white supremacists who's actually getting charged with a hate crime. So I don't have a bias either way here. I've worked with the police, and I'm also here to hold the police accountable. And so I'm so excited to hear the members of this neighborhood council are standing up and doing something, because it's the Proud Boys today and the lies from Harbor Division about this, and it's something else next time.
Yep.
And just to say it, right? Like, hate crimes continue, right? Not because people didn't stand up and protest, it's because people said, oh, it's not important, don't show up. It's because there's apathy. And that is exactly what Harbor Division displayed. Also, just to say it, 118 cops, how much money did that cost us? And who the hell is paying the bill for that? We told you exactly, we are. You were told directly and ahead of time not to let this happen, and you allowed an unpermitted event to take place.
Yep.
I don't understand. Going back to that letter about quorum, no quorum, why are the rules being applied differently? If I want to bring 350 of my friends for a birthday party at Point Fermin, you better believe I got to pay for a permit.
Yep.
So you tell me why this is different. This is not First Amendment. The First Amendment, the Supreme Court has upheld the idea that you cannot yell fire in a crowded movie house, right? So, because public safety.
Yep.
A known terrorist organization, and I'm not making this up, this is not hyperbole, right? Comes to your city and your police department stands by and does nothing? I don't feel safe. I don't want any one of those cops protecting me. I think they should all hand in their badges and go home if that's what they're going to be doing. So I'm just saying it. The last thing I want to say, I really, really, really think that it's more important that we offer a date that's viable for the community members, right? And that November 24th is just not a viable date.
So Chris, so the 29th, I think, is more viable.
Well, in which case we'll just put plans in place to reschedule youth and outreach, hope maybe earlier in the day if committee members are available, or to an alternate day that we can decide some other way.
We'll take Pat's comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I see Pat.
Well, as a point of information, I wanted to remind us that it's a little past 8:35 and we have other committee reports and other liaison reports to
So
do.
we'll
So
take Pat and then Gwen, and then that's the final comment.
Thank you. Can I make a suggestion for a moderator? We have somebody available to us who's a high-level mediator and moderator who does this kind of thing at a much higher level professionally in the county of Los Angeles, and that's Ray Regalado.
Yeah,
That's a great suggestion.
that's a good suggestion. See if he's available.
But he's still part of our system because he's bonked. That doesn't make him part of the community. He's still part of the neighborhood council system.
So,
But not this board particular.
Well, somebody said to have, which was your wife, to have somebody from the community, and he's still part of our system. So
Lives-
one or the other we have to go with.
He lives in the community. He is a stakeholder.
I understand, and so am I, but we said not to have somebody from the board.
Order now.
he's not on the board.
So Treasurer and Mr. Vice President, did you want to take a vote for the November 28th?
Yeah, if we could just update I think the 29th will be just logistically easier to wrangle.
So what I would like to do at this point, Gwen, and then what do you have? Is it quick?
Yes, it is.
Gwen?
Yes, it is. I was wondering what other organizations were going to be invited. I'm hoping that the FBI,
Park, City of Attorney,
I'm
Rec
hoping
Park, the police, and other neighborhood councils.
Wait, hold on. Could somebody possibly reach out to the FBI since they are an organization that is very familiar? Is there any representative who might be on that level?
Well, we did intend to CC, county and state. I mean, so I think Representative Barragon's office is a federal representative, but it's not impossible probably to find some contact information for an FBI field office. I don't know if that's the sort of thing that I would imagine they don't necessarily agendize or prioritize that type of engagement.
So
But
I
we can
have
reach
some
out to them.
information that might be helpful for you in that.
Okay, so forward that to Maya.
Yeah, just to say that there is a field office for the FBI, and that's the field office that's working with us on the hate crime.
Oh, well, that's
That'd be perfect then.
okay.
Thank you.
So what I would like to do at this point is not that we need to, is I would like to take a roll call vote of support for this that shows that the board supports this. So Thomas?
Why do you need to have a vote if it's not needed?
Because I want to show a support. It's important to show a roll call vote.
To you or to the who?
To the board.
To us.
To us and to the community also, that we've stood together on this. So Thomas?
Aye.
Victor?
Quick question, we're not talking about the motion with the date, we're just saying,
Well, it will be just support of the town hall as well as the motion that it'll be the 29th.
so we're amending it to
The 29th. Yes.
Okay, aye.
Alrighty. So yes,
Oh, yes, I said aye.
Maya?
Emphatically, yes.
John DeMeglio,
No.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
No.
Christian,
Aye.
Gwen,
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly,
Yes, sorry, couldn't unmute.
Angela,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes. Hi.
Alec,
Yes.
and Adrianita.
Yes.
Okay. All supportive except two, so we're good to go.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. It's just, again, regardless of how you feel about the topics in general, this is really about making sure that these agencies understand that we're paying attention and that we would like for them to engage with us directly and honestly. We can, I personally feel like I can handle the truth, as awful as it can be. I just don't want to be led around. We deserve, to be
Madam
respected.
Did you have a question, Madam Minute Taker?
Yes, I do. I didn't hear board member Henry's vote. Was that a yay or a nay?
It was a yes.
Yes.
Thank you kindly. I apologize for interrupting.
Okay, very good. Does that conclude the public safety report?
Yes, it does. We are done.
Okay, excellent, Madam Treasurer. It's 8:41 now, and I think that the only committee that has an item left is probably the Sustainability Committee. So if there's no objection, perhaps we could take that committee up now, so that way the motion gets disposed of.
Yep.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, and this motion was actually tabled in the previous board. We discussed it, and the Sustainability Committee met and discussed it again. So it's been discussed at a committee 3 times now, once in Sustainability, once at Port, and then again at Sustainability. And so take it away, please, Sustainability Chair.
Yes, I hope everybody is familiar with
Point
it.
of order. If it was tabled, it has to be re-voted on to bring it back up.
I don't think it does. If it went back to committee, it was tabled and it was voted on.
No, it's still, the board tabled it. So tabling makes, it was tabled to the next meeting. It has to, the tabling has to be voted on, as far as I understand Robert Rules of Order, to first
Yes.
before it can be brought back.
Correct, Councilman. Is there a motion to take the item from the table? Mr. Vice President, would you like to make that motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to take the item from the table and to take it back up here. So
And that was seconded
is
by
there any
Henry.
And who was the second on that?
Henry, Gwendolyn Henry.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take a roll call then on taking it from the table.
Vic Christensen, aye. Maya Genola,
Sorry, muted. Yes.
John DeMiglio,
Abstain.
Craig Goldfarb,
No,
Cynthia Gagne,
No,
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Aye.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Aye.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz.
May I ask a question? Are we voting to go over the letter?
No, we're voting to take it from the table because it was previously tabled. So it's just, do you want to discuss the item?
Oh, okay. Yes.
What was, Thomas, what was your vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have 11 ayes, 2 nays, 1 abstention, and carries.
Okay, very good. Madam Minute Taker, did you have an additional clarification that you want to make?
Thank you.
Very good. Sustainability Chair, please go ahead.
Okay, this was a motion out of committee. And as the president had said, this has been reviewed by twice through committee and as well as the Port Committee. This is a letter to the Port of Los Angeles, POLA. It is a CEQA comment regarding the essay recycling lease extension project. It was brought before the board last month and is back before the board. It's a lot of comments if anybody has any questions. But prior to approving a 5-year lease extension, it's a request that sorry, it's been a long meeting and I'm just now. It's a request that POLA deny the continuation of the 1996 filed EIR for the previous occupant. The previous occupant is not SA Recycling, it is Hugo New Proler Company. And a request for an EIR to be reviewed for the current occupant, SA Recycling. And it's to include, and for those of you who don't, it's a lot, there's a lot of different things, but to include current project baseline emissions, current impact assessments, and new mitigation measures. Once again, this is the last time an EIR process had gone through was almost 30 years ago. Prior to that, it was 30 years prior to that. And just so you know, 30 years ago, it did go through the process that we're requesting now. Here's another 30 years, and we're just requesting the same type of review. Things have changed in 30 years. They did before. And the port even stated at the time 30 years ago that it was necessary to do another EIR. So we're just asking for the same.
Very good, very good. Is there an amendment to the motion?
I believe the minute taker has a question.
I didn't lower
Adam
my hand,
Minute
that's my fault. Sorry.
Mr. Vice President.
Oh, I just had a question. Oh, is it known what the nature of the previous occupant's business was?
It's the same business,
Oh, okay, just different owner?
different owner.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Treasurer.
So the only concern I have is, did we go past the public comment date and where they aren't even gonna look at this? Or are we gonna be able to, will they consider this, or are we late?
They will consider this. We've sent a letter, or I've sent communication that it went through committee and that we are with process of having a review by the board.
Okay.
Mr. Patney.
Yeah, it's just as a bit of background for these things, the port has always been in a bit of a quandary about what to do about lease renewals for long-term tenants. And this case probably brings it to a head more than most do. So the project is just a lease renewal, but in the meantime, a lot of things have happened on the site. There's been new equipment introduced. There's about a 30% increase in throughput on the premises. There's some issues about release of toxins and things like that. And so I looked at this and attended the sustainability committee meeting there too, and said, you know, there's enough questions here. This one is one of those where port, you really ought to take a look at it and see if something needs to be done. Other than that, I did have a suggestion, and that is that on the mitigations, that it might be an appropriate comment. This project comment letter might be an appropriate one to say, hey, look, port, you're a big participant in this project. You've made a decision that you're going to have a scrap metal operation in the port. It's good for exports. It helps clean the streets. You know, they go to the junkyards and then they come to, you know, to be exported and things like that. So port, if there's some things that SA Recycling can't do because of the size of their premises or other things, then port, you pick up the slack on the mitigations and make sure that the air is not fouled, the water is not fouled, and the toxins are not released. That's it. And that could be an amendment to this comment letter.
Is this a motion for an amendment?
No, I can't make a motion like that.
A board member has to make the motion. A participant can't.
Is there a motion by any board member to make any amendments? Okay, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody understand what essay recycling is? I've provided a lot of information. I do see a hand from Greg.
Yes, Councilman Craig, go ahead.
Okay. I'm pretty much, this sort of is, there's a lot of was thrown in on the information we got here, but I don't, this is a facility that's necessary, that we need to have. It's in operation, people are employed there. And I don't see any smoking guns. I've looked through this and looked through this, read the information. They've complied with everything they've been required to do. And then we just want to, oh, we need an EIR. And I'm sitting there saying, the most that I saw said from anything was, maybe we need to take a look at the surface of the grounds that they're on to make sure that they're complete enough. But I couldn't find anybody that commented other than, and on top of that, the lead on this should be Wilmington, who has made no Wilmington neighbor Wilmington, who is, this is their in their area, they've made no comment on it. And now we're making a comment on something that really I don't see the point, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's, you can sit there and say, oh, this is a big deal. I mean, I'm sitting there saying, we need to do this. Would you rather leave this stuff resting on the side of the road or all over the place, polluting all communities? Or should we take it and do to a facility that's been following the requirements that have been set for it all the way along? If you sat there and said, oh, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong and this needs to be corrected, it'd be a different story, but there is nothing there. There is no smoking gun. This is, the worst you can say is somebody else got the permit and they sold the business to somebody else. That's not a reason to say that it has to be reviewed. So,
okay.
Is there an amendment? Do we have time? Do I have time to respond?
Let us come to order. Is there a possible amendment to the effect that Pat and Abe wanted, or what would you like to do, Mr. Vice President?
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, I can move that Pat's changes be amended as suggested. But I also just wanted to, essentially address Member Goldfarb's comment.
May I respond to that comment?
Let Mr. Vice President finish his comment. Go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, and I take Craig's points about, essentially this, I guess, call it certification, or, the propriety of their compliance being intact from our level of observation. I think that in general with this type of thing, just in terms of due diligence for industry in general, for the port in general, that we just not assume that things are okay because we haven't had specific evidence that they aren't, because it tends to be the case that these types of regulations are heavily influenced via lobbying in terms of favoring the businesses who, for all intents and purposes are making all of the money that they ever need to make. If we simply ask them to be more current or more frequent with, rules and oversight that they probably have had a heavy hand in determining, I don't think it's going to hurt them. I mean, if it were a possibility that we were putting people out of work, or it would affect the port's competition in the region or whatever, that's one thing. But I don't think it hurts. In terms of our mission as a board, I think it's our job to look out for the community and not to assume that people who are in this area simply to make money for the shareholders are automatically necessarily going to do the right thing for us. And if we simply, poke that with a stick every once in a while, more often than in the past, hopefully it doesn't damage their business. But if it gives us a better sense of confidence that these things are being looked after, I'd say it's worth doing. Because again, I'm sure they're profitable.
Did you want to make that amendment?
Yes, please, Mr. President.
What amendment would that be? Where would it be? What is the phrase?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Pat, did you want to clarify that one more time?
Yes, please, Pat.
Well, it's a concept that we're going to be running into a lot in the future on environmental comments on port projects. And that is that very often a tenant like SA Recycling may have an impact on the environment that needs to be studied, but they can't mitigate the negative or substantial negative impacts on their own premises. But the port is kind of a partner with all of the tenants that it has. So the idea would be, look, port, if SA Recycling can't mitigate everything on its premises, you pick up the slack. And where it would go in this letter, I haven't really thought about. I think, though, a paragraph.
Well, time.
Well, okay, so I do remember. Okay, so the essence of the amendment would be to request that the Port of Los Angeles, the Harbor Department of the city, commit to ensuring that any mitigation efforts, either not required or otherwise incomplete on the part of SA Recycling, be taken responsibility for essentially by the city through the Harbor Department. That for the community's end of it, that between the tenant and the landlord in terms of the port relationship, that there's 100% coverage, and if the tenant isn't capable or required to hold up the entirety of that, then the port itself finishes it, essentially make sure that it's been thoroughly addressed.
Yes.
All right, well, that sounds specific enough to me, and it's been recorded, and we have the minute taker here. Mr. Secretary, was there a second on that? And if there was not, I will second that.
I hadn't heard one yet.
Okay, I'm seconding that amendment. It's 8:58. I recommend that we call for the vote and then move to adjourn the meeting.
Can I please respond to Craig Goldfarb so that there's no confusion as to what's going on here?
Gwen, I'm not confused. I raised my hand. We had a vote about an amendment. We should have a discussion on the amendment. If you think you running out of time, I have a board member. I get to speak.
Order. Let us come to order. Let us come to order. It's 8:59, and I think that we should dispose of the motion. We are set to adjourn at 9 o'clock. So, Mr. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Point of order, we have to vote on the amendment and then vote on the letter.
Very good, Madam Treasurer. Mr. Secretary, call the roll for the amendment.
Dick Christensen, aye. Maya Denova.
Abstain.
John DeMiglio,
No.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
No.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
9 o'clock.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
you have 10 ayes, 3 nays, and an abstention, so it carries.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, call the roll for the amended motion.
Dick Christensen, abstain. Maya Genola,
Yes.
John DeMiglio,
No.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
No.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Oh, sorry, yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
again, 10 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 abstention.
Do you see a hand for the minute taker?
Yes, Madam Minute Taker, did you want to clarify something?
Yes, I just want to make sure I have the amendment down correctly. The amendment was to request the port to take responsibility to help with mitigation that can't be completed by SA recycling. Did I get that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Minute taker, would
Can
you-
we note in the minutes that no discussion was allowed on the amendment?
Should be there.
Madam Minute Taker, will you please forward that amendment wording to me?
Absolutely. I'll have it to you tonight.
Thank you.
Let us have a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
I second.
Aye.
Okay, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you for attending the Northwest St. Peter Neighborhood Council. It's 9:03. We look forward to seeing you again in December.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
If I may ask, who did the first and the second of the adjournment?
Right.
Chris Valle was the first.
Okay, and the second?
Melanie was the second.
Thank you kindly.